But we begin tonight with a lesson in how to and how not to run a presidential campaign. First, the how to. Just look to the Harris-Walz campaign. In short order, you are seeing a well-organized operation that has hit the ground running, not only barnstorming critical battleground states, but bringing big crowds with them. 14,000 showed up at Vice President Kamala Harris's first event with her VP pick, Governor Tim Walz, on Tuesday. Yesterday, there were 12,000 out in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And last night, more than 15,000 people filled a hangar at the Detroit Metro Airport. There is no understating the level of enthusiasm and energy seen this week at those rallies. And perhaps as important, if not more, is that their speeches are forward-looking, filled with positive messages for what Harris and Walz would bring in the next administration and not just filled with anger or fear-mongering or running through a list of grievances, and thankfully no mentions of sharks or Hannibal Lecter. Vice President Harris continued that today, speaking to United Auto Workers members in Detroit.
We're saying we just want fairness. We want dignity for all people. We want to recognize the right all people have to freedom and liberty to make choices, especially those that are about heart and home, and not have their government telling them what to do. Our campaign is about saying we trust the people.
And then there's Donald Trump. And the clear example of how not to run a presidential campaign. First off, it kind of helps if you take the time to actually go out and meet the voters. While Harris and Walz have been putting in the miles, hitting multiple states this week with more to go, all Trump has done is hit the putting greens as he remained holed up at Mar-a-Lago. Wasn't he the one who was complaining throughout his New York criminal trial earlier this year that all he wanted to do was be on the campaign trail? Well, today was the first time he took a break from his demanding schedule of walking around a putting green and eating McDonald's cheeseburgers and maybe stuffing a few nuclear documents behind his golden toilets to hold a press conference at his Florida estate. And it was exactly the misogynistic, cognitively declining stream of consciousness you would expect.
Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, and you look at it, and you look at the picture of his crowd, my crowd, we actually had more people. I had 107,000 people in New Jersey. You didn't report it. I'm so glad you asked. What did she have yesterday, 2,000 people? I have 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the crowd size. For 52 years, they wanted to bring abortion back to the states. They wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade. And that's Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and everybody. Liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back in the states. They said at first they were going to go out to another vote. They were going to go through a primary system, a quick primary system, which it would have to be. And then it all disappeared, and they just picked a person that was the first out. She was the first loser, okay? So we call her the first loser. She was the first loser when during the primary system. During the Democrat primary system, she was the first one to quit, and she quit. She had no votes, no support.
Oh, Grampy. Okay, that was just a small sampling of the bad crap bonkers statements that he made. We will not subject you to the rest. You're welcome. But just to set the record straight, and I cannot believe that I have to do this. Here's a picture of the 1963 March on Washington and a picture of Trump's crowd on January 6th before a bunch of them stormed the Capitol, which he claims was a bigger crowd than Dr. King's. One of these crowds is clearly larger than the other at 250,000 strong, while the other is basically hooligan-sized. And why is he boasting about his crowd size on January 6th anyway? And again, on crowd size. Here's Harris's crowd in Philadelphia, and here's Trump's crowd in the same exact arena. Just look with your eyes as to who filled more seats. You can literally just look. Oh, and abortion is a huge issue. And no, not everyone wanted to see Roe v. Wade overturned. The only ones who wanted it back in the States were Donald Trump's far-right evangelical base. And when it comes to Harris becoming the nominee, his deteriorating mind is clearly fusing the 2020 primaries with the ones this year, as he apparently thinks that Harris just ran for president in this year's Democratic primary, when in fact, She was on the primary ballots this year with Joe Biden as his vice presidential running mate, because she's the vice president. See, that's how that works. Perhaps it is time for Donald Trump to take another one of those cognitive tests. To be clear, Donald Trump did this today because he is freaking out, because he lost the spotlight to the Democratic ticket. And he decided to do what this cruddy little campaign has been unable to do, and that is seize back center stage. He tried to have his running mate, J.D. Vance, handle things this week on the campaign trail, but all he did was appear to stalk Vice President Harris across the country, including at one point trying to make his way with his entourage onto her plane, Air Force Two, which was just weird and embarrassing. So far, Trump's attacks on the Harris-Walz ticket are just not working. No matter how many times Trump posts on his third-rate social media platform with more and more unhinged rants. And don't just take it from me. They know their campaign is floundering. As the Washington Post reports, Trump behind the scenes is complaining relentlessly about Harris's surging poll numbers and media coverage since replacing Biden on the ticket, telling an ally in a phone call last weekend, quote, "It's unfair that I beat him and now I have to beat her too." Wah. I said the wah part. That was me. The Post adds that allies have taken to finger pointing over several events that seemingly went off the rails. Perhaps they will add today's meandering hot mess presser to that list. Senator Lindsey Graham told the Post, quote, "We had a lot of good things happen in a row that were unsustainable, but we've hit a few speed bumps. There's been a rough spot." You think? Well, that is putting it mildly, Lindsey. I do recall, though, you saying once upon a time, if we nominate Trump, we'll lose and we'll deserve it. Touche. Joining me now is former Senator Doug Jones. He's currently a distinguished senior fellow at the Center for American Progress, and Jason Johnson, professor of politics and journalism at Morgan State University and an MSNBC political contributor. I'm going to go to you first, Senator, because it seems to me that what may have broken Donald Trump and you know, some of his friends and allies is kind of the regular guyness of this ticket, the regular personness, regular woman, regular guyness. They are just like so approachable and regular. You experienced that when you ran for the United States Senate in Alabama. I mean, you were running against a guy, you know, who picked his paramours from the preteen set, apparently. And so people were like, whoa, too weird for us in Alabama. We want you. You seem normal. So you know how this works. What do you make of the way that the Trump campaign has responded?
I don't think they have a clue how to respond. You know, Donald Trump's campaign has always been about being unhinged, about retribution, about anger, about trying to rile up people to vote against folks. It hasn't been about joy and unity, and that's what you're seeing. And they don't know how to do that. They do not know how to respond. They don't know how to respond to authenticity, because you can't ever tell what Donald Trump is going to say. It doesn't really matter if he is going to say anything that he believes will promote his base, regardless of the facts. So I think that contrast is incredible, and the American people are seeing it. They are yearning. I can tell you, Joy, I really believe everywhere I've gone in the country the last 3 years, people have been yearning for that unity, to see people coming together, enjoying what they're doing, looking to go forward and not backward. And that's why you're seeing such incredible energy out there right now.
Oh, no, absolutely. And look, the Benetton ad of the Harris-Walz ticket, and, you know, the two white dudes standing behind her, like, amening her, like she's Gladys Knight and they're the Pips. Like, it is actually very unifying, and it's hard to escape that. Let me go to you, Jason. I almost never would dispute what a civil rights legendary lawyer would say, but I'm going to dispute one thing that the great Doug Jones has said. I can predict what Donald Trump is going to say. It's noun, verb, crowd size. Noun, verb, I really won in 2020. Let me show you an example. This is, I had our great Kai cut this, our wonderful producer, cut this because Donald Trump started off being asked one thing, and he ended up right where one would expect. Here it is.
Yeah. Oh, we gave tremendous for child care and all of that. No, our tax cuts, which are the biggest in history, our tax cuts are coming due, as you know, very soon. Look, they've weaponized government against me. Look at the Florida case. It was a totally weaponized case. All of these cases, France learned that lesson. You know, France had all mail-in voting, and they went back to paper ballots, voter identification, voter ID. They went back to a normal system, one-day voting. They don't want to be around, you know, voting for 64 days. And look, the election, I keep talking about November 5th, but the election really starts on September 6th. That's when it starts, because it's early voting. We should have one-day voting.
Jason, I promise you he was asked about taxes. I promise you. But he ended up, his brain just sort of goes freeborn.
You know, Joy, again, it's fascinating to me when we talk about now who is the sort of person who seems not mentally fit, not mentally capable of performing. But here's the thing, and I think this is very important. One of the few things I was able to get from suffering through, say, the press conference earlier today, it speaks volumes about the lack of philosophy that Trump has, that one of the things that he wanted to flex on was how many people he had in the crowd at January 6th. That's sort of like saying, hey, I had more people at my fraud trial than you had at your wedding. It's a fraud trial, right? Like who's bragging about that? Who's bragging about how many terrorists you can bring to the table, right? But it speaks to the fact that they don't have a plan. They don't have a philosophy. I think just from a pure campaign strategy standpoint, okay, maybe the first week you were shocked by what was going to happen with Harris and you had to do some focus weeks, but it has been over 2 weeks now. And they can't figure out anything to say other than she's black. So that I don't think they're going to figure anything out. They're just hoping America hates change, and America has wanted change for 4 or 5 years now, and the Harris-Walz ticket brings it.
And by the way, let me just let y'all know the Cook Political Report, which, you know, the polls, we take it with a grain of salt, but they sort of do trends. They've moved a bunch of these ratings in these swing states to toss-ups. Arizona's been moved to toss-up, Nevada to toss-up, Georgia to toss-up. So it's much, much closer.